Hi to everyone joining us. Hello, welcome. We're just going to give it a few minutes, make sure everyone who wants to join can join. So do make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you've got, any essential snacks, drinks, cushions, whatever you need around you for the next 90 minutes with me, Dr. Jen McConnell from Ocean Generation. This is going to be a bit of an interactive session. So here is your audience participation warning. Yeah, really looking forward to hearing from you all very, very soon. But as I say, we will just give it a few moments whilst everybody logs on. Not least because I've had that experience many a time before where I've tried to get on to a Zoom call and my Zoom suddenly just wants to update. We've all been there, so we'll give it a moment. Do feel free if you want to say hello in the chat. We will allow everybody to introduce themselves in true Ocean Generation style in a little bit, but do feel free to say hello in the chat. The chat is open as well if you do have any questions at any point, which the lovely Katie Mitchell from Global Ocean Forum will keep an eye on for me whilst I share every screen on this planet. But welcome to those of you who are just joining us. This is our How to Run an Ocean Conversation roundtable as part of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. My name is Dr. Jen McConnell. I'm from Ocean Generation. And as I say, I will properly introduce the session, myself, Katie, Ocean Generation, the Virtual Ocean Pavilion in a moment once we're sure we've got everyone in the room. And don't worry if you're not able to unmute yourself today, there are still different ways of participating. I have a plan for that, don't you worry. But yeah, just everyone, if you can just make sure that you are as comfortable as possible. And we'll get started in a couple of minutes' time. If you know of anybody who's trying to get on and are experiencing technical difficulties, please do let us know. And Katie will do her best to help in that situation. Okay. Yeah, just wait one more minute if that's okay, Katie, just to make sure we've got everyone. As I say, if you've just joined us, we are just waiting until we've got everyone who wants to join the Zoom room. But this is How to Run an Ocean Conversation, a roundtable with me, Dr. Jen McConnell from Ocean Generation. I think we've got quite a mix of people in the room, and we'll certainly find out about that in a moment. This session is also being recorded, so if you know of anybody who wanted to come but can't make it, we will be able to share that recording later. Equally, I'm going to throw a lot of information at you, so you might want to refer back to that recording in a little while. So yeah, don't worry about taking notes or anything like that. We will share that recording with you. Okay, I'm gonna get started, Katie, but I think I'll hand over to you first to introduce yourself and the Virtual Ocean Pavilion for anyone who might be joining from elsewhere.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gemma, and welcome to all of our participants in today's roundtable. My name is Katie Mitchell. I'm a policy analyst with the Global Ocean Forum, and we are one of the three co-organizers of this year's COP30 Virtual Ocean Pavilion, along with Ocean Generation and Plymouth Marine Laboratory. The Virtual Ocean Pavilion is now in its fifth year. This will be the fifth pavilion that we offer in alignment with the in-person COP, which this year is being held in Belém, Brazil. And the purpose of this platform, we have two main goals. The first is to try and increase the profile of the ocean among ocean and climate negotiations and within the COP to highlight the importance of the ocean for the climate and to all life on this planet, and also to make the COP, which is the Conference of the Parties, more accessible for those who are not able to attend in person. The COP is also known as the UN Climate Conference. It's one of the biggest gatherings of ocean and climate experts and parties around the world to discuss and negotiate the terms of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And this is a really important dialogue that features world leaders, civil society representatives, and stakeholders that are involved in the ocean and climate space. So it's really important that we're able to highlight all different kinds of voices and perspectives through that process, and even those who aren't able to attend and participate in that conference in person. So that's where the Virtual Ocean Pavilion platform comes in as one way to try and highlight and elevate the voices of diverse stakeholders to ensure that their opinions and ideas are integrated into that process. It's a pleasure to offer this for our attendees and collaborators, and really excited for today's roundtable, which is one of 4 roundtables offered through the pavilion. So please, if you haven't already, check out the platform. I'll drop the link to the platform in the chat. And without further ado, I will turn it back over to Dr. Gemma Connell to get today's session started.
Thank you so much, Katie. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Gemma Connell. I am Youth Engagement Lead at Ocean Generation, which, as Katie mentioned, we are one of the organising partners in this year's Virtual Ocean Pavilion. I'm going to start us off with a little bit of an introduction to who Ocean Generation are, why we do what we do, but also I will talk a little bit about something you see on screen right now, which is the Wavemakers program, and it's the program that I run at Ocean Generation, and within that sits the how to run an ocean conversation offer. So there's this workshop, but this has been adapted slightly for the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. We also have a downloadable ocean conversation pack as well. So today's session is all about how to get people talking about the ocean, about ocean threats, about how we can all take action, and get them talking in ways that make sense to them, because that's definitely something that we've been exploring at Ocean Generation for a while now, and particularly on the Wavemaker program. So you might be a young person who's looking to run an ocean conversation. You might be someone who works with young people and wants to run ocean conversations with them. You also might be somebody else entirely who's just really intrigued as to what Ocean Generation have been up to in this space. And there will be a point in a moment where we'll get everybody to introduce themselves, so we can see who's in that room. But before I get into the ocean conversation side of things, let's just give a little bit of an intro for those who maybe haven't heard of us before, who Ocean Generation is and what we do. So Ocean Generation, we are a UK-based charity, although we have started working across the globe, usually through the power of the internet, just like we're doing right now. And we're an ocean literacy charity. So we work really hard to kind of bring ocean literacy and ocean education to lots of different kinds of people. So far, we have had a bit of a focus on young people, and the Wavemaker program itself focuses on 16 to 25-year-olds. But we do sometimes work outside of that age group as well. And of course, we're always working with group leaders outside that age group as well. And I think certainly for me, as the person who leads the Wavemaker program at Ocean Generation, the really important thing that we kind of focus on within that is the last 2 words on this slide here, and that's practical actions. Okay, so within the Wavemaker program, we deliver lots and lots of different workshops aimed at people working within lots of different fields. It might be medical students, fashion and textile students, youth councils, things like that. But we always try and make what we're saying very, very relevant to them. And within that, we don't just want to kind of sit with the information around the ocean threats. We don't just want to sit with the problems. Of course, we discuss them in detail because that we need to understand what's happening there in order to make a difference. But our very ocean positive approach is one which then kind of moves towards, okay, what do we do about it? And what can um regular people or people doing various different things around the world do to really, really help protect our ocean. So practical actions is something we focus on, and we see running ocean conversations and raising awareness as one of the many practical actions that we can take. So just keep that in mind, I suppose, as we go through today. And as I say, within what we do at Ocean Generation, we have a number of youth programs. One of them is Wave Makers, which, as I say, I run. Um, and you might be wondering, what do you mean by wave maker, Gemma? What does that term mean? Well, let's hope the technology works here. I promise me and Katie have tested it, but you never know in these situations. I'm going to play a short video which hopefully gives a little intro into what we mean by the term wave maker at Ocean Generation.
It's time to dare to reimagine the world we want to live in. Brave young people like you and I. It's time to redefine our role as wave makers. We are breaking down the science, celebrating stories of people making change on the front lines of climate, focusing on actionable solutions. Because we don't need a handful of people doing zero carbon and zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. Become a wave maker. Join the Ocean Generation.
Okay, so for us at Ocean Generation, a wave maker is someone who creates change. But that change can be as big or as small as that person, one, wants it to be, and two, and most importantly, has the capacity and resources to make at that moment in time. This is a really key element of our message through Wavemakers, but through the entire organization, because this is about imperfect environmentalism. The idea that we don't need just a handful of people doing sustainability perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly. And this is a message we find really, really resonates among the young people that we work with on the Wavemaker program, who maybe previously have felt overwhelmed by media and social media coverage of these issues and felt like that there's nothing that they as an individual person can do to help. Imperfect environmentalism shows them that there are many things they can do to help, and every little thing that we do really, really does make a difference. And within Wavemakers, it's also, as I say, really important for us to make sure that what we are talking to them about, the actions they can take, is very sort of made a bit more bespoke to their lives. So if I am talking to fashion and textile students, for example, at Manchester Metropolitan University here in the UK, then I'll be talking about specifically how their interests, what they're studying, the industry that they're going into is having an impact on the ocean and where they can do something about it. So rather than giving people a kind of tick box of of things that they can do to help, which may or may not apply to their lives, we make it as specific as we can. And the really, really important thing as well here is we get into conversations with these young people who may throw up problems we hadn't even thought of, or might have a really, really interesting perspective on something that we're saying. In every workshop, I learn just as much from the young people as they do from me. And that's one of the many places where our Ocean Conversation resource pack and workshop came about. So this is the Ocean Conversation pack. You can download it from our website. You can also download it from the treasure trove section in the exhibition section of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, but I will pop a direct link into the chat in a little while as well. So you can download it straight from there. And one of the other places that this really came from was that at the end of every workshop that I would teach, young people would say to me, Gemma, how do I get your job? Which was always a really interesting conversation. But what they really meant was, how do I get into science communication? How do I kind of get access to these facilitation tools that they might not be taught elsewhere in their studies? So we felt, right, let's pull this together into a resource pack. And we did this in consultation with young people from all over the world. So many different young people have really had an input into the direction of this resource pack. And then from there, built out a workshop to sort of help people be guided through that pack as well. So we're going to go through, as part of today, some of the things that you might find in that pack. We're going to test out some of those facilitation tools on each other. Just give you a little bit of an intro into exactly how that works. Now, in order to do so, I'd really like to get to know you all a little bit better. So in a moment, we're going to go round. Katie, I'm going to ask you to kind of call on people because you'll be able to see everybody and I can't while sharing my screen at this moment in time. But if you could say 3 things for us. 1, who you are. 2, what is it that you are interested in kind of today's roundtable? What maybe are you looking for? Do you work with young people? Are you a young person yourself, for example? And 3, and this is the really fun bit, this is our favorite icebreaker at Ocean Generation and one you will find in the pack. Which ocean creature would you be and why? I find this to be a very revealing question. And I will give you mine to start us off, okay? Because you can be as silly or as philosophical as you like with this one. So I would be a stingray. I absolutely adore stingrays. They are the reason I joined Ocean Generation nearly 3 years ago. And I think they are beautiful, a little bit dangerous, and very misunderstood. And I hope someone somewhere thinks that of me. There you go. That's my ocean creature. Okay. So as I say, we'll go around. Katie will call on each person in turn. I'd like to know who you are, what you're here for, what you're looking to get out of this session, and which ocean creature you would be and why. Katie, over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gemma. I will start with sharing my favorite ocean creature as well. Katie Mitchell with the Global Ocean Forum. Excited to connect with everyone at today's roundtable. And I would be a cuttlefish. They are my favorite ocean creature. I think it's so fascinating the way that they're able to camouflage with their surroundings. They have a really interesting hunting style. And I used to work at an aquarium and I took care of the cuttlefish. So I really enjoyed their behaviors and mannerisms. So with that, I will pass it along to our next participant, and I'm seeing Marie Dare.
Hi there. Yeah, so my name's Marie Dare. I am the learning officer at Macduff Marine Aquarium. So I do work quite a lot with young people, but also people from all ages and walks of life. And I suppose what I'm looking to get out of today is just a fresh approach and to try to keep my practice relevant and ever evolving and engaging so that I can have these important ocean conversations with people and continue to share my passion in a meaningful way and engage with people and hopefully inspire them to make some changes in their own behaviors. Ocean creatures, really, really hard to choose just one. I'll go with sea turtles because I worked with sea turtles for quite a lot of time. I met my husband working on a sea turtle project, and we've done lots of diving and snorkeling with turtles. So they've been quite important throughout my life, I guess.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. Next, I see Radha Pandeva.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to see you. I've been involved with ocean generation, or I should say, I've known of ocean generation for ages now. So I'm very happy to be here. Hi, Gemma. Right, who am I? My name is Rada, and I really like to introduce myself also as Joy because that's the meaning of my name in Bulgarian, which is my mother tongue. I am a recent graduate, a marine science recent graduate, and I'm also the founder of Talasova Project, which is an initiative dedicated to making ocean science and ocean literacy accessible to deaf and visually impaired people. So when it comes to an ocean conversation, I really center my work around accessibility and how, just like Gemma said in the beginning, making sure everybody is in the room and the conversation is as accessible as possible. And my favorite ocean creature and who I would identify with, I think it would be a beluga whale. Also because I'm fascinated with ocean sound and I studied ocean bioacoustics as part of my degree. In beluga whale, are known as the canaries of the ocean. So they're so vocal and bubbly, and I feel like they smile at us, and they're just fascinating to me. So yes, beluga whale would be my creature. Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Rada. Next on my screen is Miss Jo Ruxton.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see everybody here today, especially supporting Gemma, who's my colleague. I'm the founder of Ocean Generation, and I've been to various Wavemaker sessions, but always in person. So this is the first one I've done online, and I have to say, I always learn something. So that's why I'm here, Gemma, and delighted to see everybody joining in. Very hard for me to choose a favorite sea creature because I've been diving for 40 years and it's just the best place for me to be. But most recently on my mind is Galapagos sea lions because in Galapagos they have virtually no predators, not none at all, but most of them are fine. And they're really inquisitive and they really play. They play with sharks, they play with people, they play with turtles, and they just seem to spend their whole life having fun. And there's plenty of food for them. So today, my choice would be Galapagos sea lion.
Great, smart, picking something with few predators as well. Thank you so much, Jo. Next, we have Alberto Fuentes. And as Gemma noted in the chat, if you're not able to unmute or introduce yourself, please feel free to drop your introduction in the chat instead. So Alberto, are you able to chime in? Okay, no problem. If you have the opportunity, we'd love to connect with you in the chat. Moving on to our next participant, El Haji Amadou. Are you able to hear me? El Haji Amadou? Okay, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat as well. Next, we have Lucy Luck.
Hi there. So my name's Lucy. I work for the Ocean Conservation Trust and National Marine Aquarium. I'm one of the rangers. And I chose to come to this today because of ocean literacy. It's sort of like a phrase I've been really, really keen to learn a bit more recently, and I'm finding it fascinating. I was in a room with Rada a couple of days ago about it, and a big part of my role was talking to people, and ocean generation is all about communicating. So I just want to learn a bit more about that. And my creature would be a seal, because they're a local species to the southwest, and in folklore they're a selkie and they're a really beautiful creature, and I just think they're really, really lovely creatures, and that is me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lucy. Moving on to our next introduction, I see that Patricia Zwolinski has introduced herself in the chat, and her animal is the whale shark. And wow, that's so cool, Patricia. Her birthday and International Whale Shark Day are on the same day. Awesome coincidence. Moving on to our next participant, Sara Zehrawi, and my apologies for my pronunciation of the name there. Sara Zarawi, are you able to introduce yourself? No problem. Sara, we'd love to connect with you in the chat when you are available. Next, we have Alfonso Navarro Carvalho. Are you able to introduce yourself to the roundtable today? Okay, Alfonso, if you have the opportunity, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Our next participant is Lori Foulon, who has introduced herself in the chat, and her ocean animal is also the whale shark. Great pick. Those are fabulous and magnificent creatures. Our next participant I see on the call is Mikey Betts. Mikey, are you able to introduce yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Sorry, I'm on my phone. Thanks so much for this great collaboration and this call. I must say I came in quite last minute, but I'm happy to be here. I work for the International Federation of Rowing, so I'm in the sports industry, and I'm very eager to learn a bit more about the ocean and how we can collaborate and also how we can communicate it better to our athletes community and our sports industry. I work in the development and sustainability department and here to learn a lot. So we have our one discipline, which is recently been introduced onto the Olympic program in LA 28, which is beach sprint. And so this is the first time we branching out into the ocean environment. Before we were always on rivers and lakes, but now our sport is going also into the ocean. So we are learning a lot, and with it comes, of course, the angle of protecting and restoring. So happy to be here. And if I had to choose an animal, I would probably be saying sea turtle, because I did some awesome cleanup with a local NGO in Turkey a few weeks ago to protect the sea turtle habitat, the nesting habitat. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that is all of the participants we have, and I'll just note a few introductions that have come through on the chat. Alberto shared that his favorite marine species is the Chilean abalone. Great pick. And El Hadji Amadou is joining today. They are a sustainable development analyst based in Senegal, and we'll have to keep our eye on the chat if they have their favorite marine species to share. So thank you so much to all our participants, and I'll turn it back over to Gemma now that we had that fabulous icebreaker.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, and do feel free if you change your mind or if you come up with your ocean creature to share it via the chat. Absolutely. Really, really great to hear kind of where people are coming from and what kinds of thing they're interested in for today. What I will say, just to talk to a few of the things that you mentioned there, the stuff that we're going to use today and that is in the Ocean Conversation Pack is suitable for working with all ages. It just each time needs a little bit of adaptation depending on which age group you are working with. I won't dive into that in too much detail today because we haven't got the time for that. But I will at the end pop my email address in the chat. So if you've got any questions about how you might adapt something for a specific audience, you're more than welcome to get in touch as well. So this is kind of what we're going to go through today. We're going to start with a little bit around information on our ocean. So, you know, a couple of people noted that they are sort of new to maybe the science communication side of things, or like how you would communicate some of these issues to young people. So I'm just going to go through some of Ocean Generation's top line messages and how we find it lands with young people, or how we find best to kind of communicate that. And then we're going to really dive into the Ocean Conversation Pack, how to use the pack, just having a couple of examples of some of the starter science that's in there. And again, if you work with young people, you might want to use this pack as a leader, but equally you might want to support them through using the pack themselves. Okay, so that's why we've got starter science in there as well, because we really want to encourage the young people to do their own research, to kind of have that very, very questioning mind as well, with the research they're doing to inform their conversations. And funnily enough, we even have a brand new fact-checking resource out there, thanks to our incredible Marine Science Officer, Will Steen, that they can use to help with their research for that. And then we're going to spend quite a bit of our time just testing out some facilitation tools, and we're going to have some fun with this. Okay. Now, with the caveat, they'll be very different because we're doing this online rather than how you would do them in person. But yeah, I'll explain how that works when we get there. And then what you might do after an ocean conversation. So how you evaluate or get the young people that you're working with to evaluate that ocean conversation, what ocean action they might take as a result, and how you as their leader could support that, or how we as Ocean Generation might be able to support that as well. Okay, so it is a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the pack, but as I say, I will pop the download link in the chat at the end, and you are more than welcome to ask Ocean Generation any questions about that as we go forward. Fantastic. Okay, so with that, let's dive in. We usually start when working with young people kind of talking about how our ocean supports all life. Again, depending on where you are in the world, and even for us, depending on where you are in the UK and the education system that you're using, because as me and Katie were chatting about before we started, the UK is made up of 4 countries, each with different education systems. You know, depends on actually how much young people know about the ocean as well, and whether they've had access to it. So we usually start with our kind of top lines of how the ocean supports all life on Earth. For very young children, I find connecting them with ocean creatures is a really, really great way of doing it, because, you know, they think they're cute, they want to be their friends, they want to help them. So, you know, we might kind of talk about some of the amazing things that whales do for us, for example, or use an icebreaker like which ocean creature would you be and why, to kind of get them talking about that. And then we note as well that, you know, although the ocean is home to thousands of plants and organisms, some scientists estimate that 91% of ocean species are still to be discovered. So really highlighting that idea that there's so much about the ocean that we don't know yet. And this can really, really help us when we're then talking to young people and they ask a question we don't have the answer to. Believe me, if you've ever worked with young people, particularly young children before, they ask the hardest questions, much harder questions than a lot of adults do as well. But yeah, to really kind of demonstrate that we don't have all of the answers, and that's okay. But that inquiring mind, if we can encourage that mindset in a younger person, then that really sets us up for the future of marine science and science communication as well. We also like to note this idea of ocean, not oceans. So the 5 world oceans being, of course, the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian, the Arctic, and the Southern Ocean, which are great labels to know where in the world we're talking about. But at Ocean Generation, we simply prefer to refer to them as one ocean to really highlight all the interconnectedness of the ocean, and indeed all of our waterways. So our rivers, our canals, even the water in our toilets is connected to the water in our ocean. And this interconnectivity is a really kind of great way of showing young people that what happens in one part of the ocean will affect the other parts too. So whatever we do to that ocean on a local scale also has a global effect, whether that's a bad thing that we do to the ocean, such as pollution, or whether that's a really good thing that we do to the ocean, you know, trying to kind of help protect it. There's a great example that I love to use here, which for many, many young people brings a smile to their face and a memorable image in their head so that they can keep this kind of idea of ocean, not oceans, in their brain. And that's the story of a shipping container a few years ago that got into a spot of trouble, and that shipping container contained rubber ducks. And those rubber ducks were released into the ocean. So whilst not great for the ocean, of course, they're made of plastic. The image of rubber ducks floating across the ocean is one that will stay with a young person, I promise you. And we kind of note how then scientists could learn about ocean currents a bit more, and how those ducks were found washed up on the shores of every continent as well. So yeah, pulling on little images like that will really help kind of resonate with young people too. Okay, so those are some of our top line messages. I think now what we'll dive into is actually how to use the Ocean Conversation pack. Okay, so as I say, this is it's quite a hefty document, but it's not designed for you to read it from cover to cover. It is designed to be what we would say a mentor, not a teacher, particularly when we are wanting to get young people to be guided through the pack themselves. We find the best way of working with young people in these spaces is not to tell them what to do, not to tell them what to think, but actually ask them the right questions so they can get there themselves, so they feel they have ownership over whatever journey it is that they take through ocean science and through science communication. So the pack is designed as a way of asking these young people, or yourself as a leader, if this is the first time you've done something like this, asking you the right questions to guide you to develop your own unique ocean conversation. It should be about something the young people really care about in order to kind of get as much as we can out of them. So there's lots of options given there. There's suggestions for sustainable approaches to running the event and things like that. And then there's a suite of facilitation tools, which we ask young people to really think about the audience that they are going to be delivering this to, and then choose those facilitation tools based on their audience. Okay. So yeah, it's not a how-to in the sense of being really strict. It's a how-to in the sense of here's the right questions for you to make your own unique ocean conversation. Okay. Now, I suppose a really key question to answer here is, what is an ocean conversation? Well, an ocean conversation is bringing people together to discuss ocean issues, brainstorm actions, and come to a consensus on taking an ocean action as a group, an ocean action that results from the conversation that you've had. So we are wanting to encourage events like these, led by and for young people, so that they can hone their facilitation skills, engage in meaningful dialogue on ocean issues, and collaboratively work on taking collective ocean action. So it might be that a group of university students who are as part of a society want to run an ocean conversation with some of the departments in their university to get them thinking differently about how they do sustainability on campus. It might be that they're a youth group who are working with the youth parliament in whatever country that you are in, and they're wanting to kind of think a bit more politically led, for example. So everyone's ocean conversation will look and feel different depending on who is in the room. And you can hold it online or in person. The only defining characteristic of an ocean conversation is that it leads to a consensus and a positive commitment to taking ocean action. Okay. Now, as I say, there's different sections within the pack, and you can access them, or your young people can access them based on your prior experience. So say you are a young person yourself and you're a marine biologist, you might actually not need the starter science section, but you might be working with young people who love the ocean in one way or another, but they don't have the knowledge to hold their own ocean conversation yet. In that case, the starter science section is for you. So this is where we look at our impact on the ocean, and we come from it, again, very much from that ocean positive perspective, that we still want to be able to submerge ourselves in the wonder and appreciation of the ocean, but leave no trace. So it's about us trying to find alternative ways of doing all the amazing things we do in this world, rather than just stopping everything, okay? So trying to get those young people to think outside of the box. Within the starter science section, you'll find the 5 ocean threats that we focus on at Ocean Generation. So we have climate change, pollution, coastal infrastructure development, resource extraction, and daily ocean use. So it goes through each one of them, it breaks the science down, and with our very ocean positive approach, we also present an ocean solution for every ocean threat, which might be a research team, it might be a startup, or another wave maker somewhere in the world who's doing incredible things to work towards solving some of these ocean threats, okay? And that's used to really inspire the young people to start thinking about their own ocean threats as well. So, for example, within pollution, we do have a bit of a focus on plastic pollution in the ocean, and we've got various resources around plastic pollution within that particular section. We might talk about exactly how plastic breaks up in the ocean, becomes microplastics, what the effects of that are on the ocean, on ocean creatures, and then on human health as well. But then we look to potential ocean solutions, such as, for example, using seaweed as an alternative to plastic. But again, within this, we really want to keep encouraging those young people to challenge as much as possible. So if you're using this pack with young people, I'd really encourage you to kind of get them to look at the ocean solutions, get them to think about where the pros and cons of those ocean solutions might be, and how they, as a young person in this world, might work towards solving that. One of the ways they can work towards solving that is to look at some of the frameworks that we've also got in the pack, like, for example, the 5 R's, which is all about maximizing your energy, okay? So we all have a finite amount of energy to spend on these issues. We can't do everything, otherwise we burn out. That's one of the, one of the reasons we kind of talk about imperfect environmentalism at Ocean Generation. So we present our, this framework of the 5 R's to look at how, recycling might be the least impactful action you can take and why, and how we can maybe move ourselves up towards reduce, refuse, and rethink some of the other R's that aren't engaging with single-use plastic anymore, for example. Okay, so there's various frameworks within there that you can use to get different age groups thinking about some of the actions that they can take, and within that, how they might make their ocean conversation event, if it's being held in person, the most sustainable as possible. So whether that's providing sustainable refreshments, thinking about how the team who are running that event are going to travel there, how the participants are going to travel there, and so on, okay? But again, always with this questioning kind of thing in mind of what is going to be the best way to be the most ocean intelligent event, but also an event that is accessible to the audience that we are trying to reach, which is really, really key. So there's, as I say, constant questioning throughout the pack that we encourage the young people to get involved with. But one of the really, really great things about the pack, and one of the reasons why we set it up, is the facilitation tools. So we had lots of young people that we were working with who loved our workshops and wanted to learn how to do it themselves, okay? But they couldn't kind of see where they might have access to this kind of training. And that is why we built the pack. So within the pack, as I say, we asked them to really consider their audience and choose the facilitation tools they might use. So within that, you've got icebreakers like which ocean creature would you be and why. You've also got practical tools, tools that get people moving. These work really, really well with neurodiverse audiences or audiences who I refer to as kinesthetic learners, people who need to move to think. Okay, so these are tools that get people moving across the room to kind of share their opinions on certain issues. We're going to talk about one of them in a moment. But they really try and get people out of just their heads and into their bodies to think about some of these ocean issues. We've also got discussion tools in there that really get quite deep into sort of roundtable type discussions on particular issues. And they're also discussion tools that try really hard to make sure that everyone in the room is heard, which can be the danger in running an ocean conversation, is that someone doesn't feel like their opinion has been heard. So there's some tools in there that allow the facilitator to make sure that that is happening. And then we also touch on consensus building, how that facilitator might bring a group of people to a consensus or an agreement on ocean action to take, even if there are widely different opinions in the room. It's a real skill and one that they can use, young people can use and transfer into their future career, no matter what career they're going to go into. But it's a really, really valuable tool to be able to go, okay, we've got different opinions in this room, but how do we agree on an ocean action to take that everyone is happy with? Okay, so it takes you through each sort of step of the process of delivering that ocean conversation. So with that, I'm going to talk you through a couple of these now. We're going to try a digital version of one of them out because we can't, unfortunately, move across the room when we're all in the same Zoom room. So we're going to try a digital version of this out. But this is one of my favorites, and this is called Opinion Continuum. Okay. So what's also really helpful within the package, you'll see you have like a time scale, so how long the task usually takes, and then a works best with. So, you know, what audience this particular tool works best with. And then a bit of a discussion, you know, or description around what you would get out of this particular tool. So the opinion continuum timescale is around about 5 minutes per question asked. This does depend on how chatty your group are. You know, some of them might have some really deep thoughts and want to talk for a bit longer. It works really well with those new to ocean intelligence, ocean threats, ocean science, because it's about someone's instinctual response to a question or a statement. And then we can kind of start to discuss that further and get in depth, okay? So through this, you can find out your discussion group's priorities and opinions on certain issues. And I also find it's a great one to use when discussing controversial topics or those where people's opinions might vary. It has surprised me using this one in certain rooms where I've thought everybody is going to agree, and it turns out they don't. So it's led to quite interesting conversations. So here's how this works. In a physical room, you either ask a key question or pronounce a deliberately provocative statement. It's really key that is a deliberately provocative statement, okay? And you then ask, you know, if people strongly agree with that statement, they move to one side of the room. If they strongly disagree with that statement, they move to the other side of the room. And if they find that their opinion is sitting somewhere in the middle, they need to place themselves along that continuum, as it were. Okay. Once everybody has placed themselves on the continuum, it's the facilitator's job to pick out a few people in different spaces and say, why have you placed yourself here? Okay. And it really, really helps people kind of figure out what their opinion is if maybe they've never been asked that question before or something like that, because they're having to move in space first, and then it helps them kind of sort out their thoughts. So really, really popular, yeah, with people maybe new to this subject, people who have various different opinions in a group, and certainly with young people, a very, very popular one. Now, of course, we can't do that in this room right now, so we're going to do it through a little bit of a voting thing. So in a moment, I'm going to switch over the technology, and I'm going to move us over to Mentimeter. It's a platform called Mentimeter. So in a minute, you will get a QR code or a link and a code to pop into your laptop. And this is the statement I'm going to ask as part of that. So the ocean is our greatest ally in climate change. Okay, so if we were in a space together, I would assign different parts of the room and say, if you, strongly agree, go over here. If you strongly disagree, go over here. But we're going to do it slightly differently right now. So give me a moment whilst I move us over to our Mentimeter. Okay, and as I say, you can either do this on your phone, because you will see a QR code in a moment, or you can open another tab on your laptop or computer, and you'll be able to pop in a link and a code. Okay, so you should be able to see that now. So you can either scan the QR code here or go to menti.com and pop in the code 38519931. So I'm just going to pop that in the chat as well for ease. And then here's the code. Okay, fabulous. I'll just give another 30 seconds to see if anyone else is up for joining. And then we will move on to the next slide here. Oh, looks like you're trying to just give me 1 second. I'm not sure what's going on there. Technology never works when you need it to, does it? Issues connecting to the quiz. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, you know what? If that's not going to work for us, if you could just pop in the chat if you would strongly agree, or somewhat agree, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree with the statement that should be back on the screen right now. The ocean is our greatest ally in climate change. Okay. So strongly agree, strongly disagree, agree somewhat, disagree somewhat. Oh, we've got a lot of strongly agrees here. Okay, fantastic. Would anyone feel brave enough to unmute themselves and say why you strongly agree with this particular statement? Anyone feeling brave?
I'll go ahead.
Go for it, Marie.
So given that the ocean has already absorbed, more than 90% of the excess heat that climate change has put into the environment, and it absorbs a huge amount of carbon dioxide, it is in fact our greatest ally. It has been, it saved us from extinction thus far, and with the capacity for plankton and algae to carbon fix and marine sediments to store carbon, it has a huge capacity to continue to mitigate for us.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Marie. Now, what's happened with this opinion continuum is that everyone in the room agrees with each other. And this can happen sometimes. It can happen. So at this moment, what I would do in an opinion continuum like that is say, can someone play devil's advocate for a moment? What might someone say if they strongly disagreed with this particular statement? Does anybody want to play devil's advocate for a moment and think, what What would someone say if they were to strongly disagree? What would be their reasoning? Can we get in their heads for a moment? Anyone feeling brave? Just trying to see everybody. Katie, do you want to give it a go?
Sure, I'm happy to. I was leaving it open for our participants, but I can jump in here. I think playing devil's advocate, if someone didn't place as high value on the importance of the ocean and climate change, they could be coming from a perspective where they don't have a direct connection to the ocean, and they may not be aware of the impacts the ocean has and its links to climate and life in general. So in the work that I've done, particularly when we're working with areas that may be landlocked or more removed from the coast, they're not seeing a direct impact on their lives. So the importance they place on the ocean and its impacts would potentially be a lot lower, and coming from those kinds of communities or backgrounds.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Rada's now just kind of popped in the chat as well. It could be somebody who does not believe in climate change entirely as well, you know. Patricia says the ocean has gone through various changes and it will resolve itself. That's certainly something I've seen a few times of people kind of saying. Laurie, again, echoing what you said there, Katie, I live far from the ocean, so I don't see how it affects my life. Yeah, absolutely. So these might be some of the responses that we kind of get with them. Certainly what I find, so I live in Manchester in the UK, so we're in the north of England. We are not near the coast at all, and this is a response that I often get when I'm working with kind of local groups around here. But that's why it's really great, I think, sometimes to set up that whole ocean, not oceans debate at the beginning, because that's where I can go, okay, everyone, we're in Manchester, look out the window, what do you see? And they will usually see the canal, the Manchester Canal. Okay, so that's then an opportunity to say, okay, well, where does the canal go to? And we start to sort of make those connections that, you know, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we are all having an impact on the ocean. But what I find with this way of doing it, instead of it being a lecture, the young person or whoever it is has been able to present their opinion first, and their opinion hasn't been berated. They haven't been shouted at, they haven't been called out. It's become part of the discussion and part of the workshop that's led on to more discoveries. So that's why like an exercise like this can work really well, as I say, for those where you might have people in the room with very, very different opinions on something, for example. So with that in mind, and again, you can pop in the chat if you can't unmute yourself right now, or feel free to unmute yourself and shout out. What question or statement would you ask as an opinion continuum? Anybody got any ideas? Like, what kinds of things would you want to ask the young people that you're working with or might work with in the future? Or, you know, not so young people as well. As I say, the last time I did this was with a group of artists actually working on a project all about climate change. And they were various different kind of age groups. So this worked really, really well with them as well. So yeah, if anybody wants to make any suggestions for what question would you ask, feel free to either say unmute yourself now or pop it in the chat, and it's something we can come back to later. Anyone feeling like they've got a burning question to ask right now? If not, don't worry, I'll leave that question. Oh, Laurie's popped one in. What can I do in my daily life? The problem is so complex and the ocean is so big. Again, yeah, it's something that, you know, that's something that we see a lot in the young people that we work with. And that's where I would say we start to kind of go, okay, what is your passion? What is your interest? Is it gaming? Cool. Okay, here's how the gaming industry impacts the ocean. Here's how you as a gamer can help. It might be a case of giving examples, and you know, we've got a few in our workshops of gamers who have used their platform to talk about certain issues. It might be as simple as please turn your computer off instead of just closing the lid You know, simple things like that. Delete emails that you're never going to read again, so they're not, you know, they're not taking up space on the cloud. So yeah, I would always say in those situations, find out what that person is really interested in and make it work for them. Make it relevant to their life. Beautiful. Okay. As I say, this is a whistle stop tour. So if you've got any more really, really deeper questions about these activities, you can drop me a line later on. But another great one to kind of generate ocean action fast, particularly if you're working with established groups. So say you've got a youth group, say it's a Scouts group, say it's a youth parliament, but like, yeah, an established group, we can do something called start, stop, continue. And essentially, you look at what are the things you need to start doing for your group, what are the things you need to stop doing, and what are the things that you're doing really well actually at the moment and you should continue with. So this is always great to be able, and the continue bit I think is really important, to celebrate what a group already does is really, really key, because sometimes young people can feel like they're constantly being told to do more. So having that moment to say, what are we doing great? And how do we continue doing that? Really, really helps to make sure that they feel like their contributions so far have been acknowledged. Okay, and that they are making a real difference. Okay, so start, stop, continue is a really interesting one. You can do it for the group, or you could do it for a particular issue. So, for example, youth voice. Youth voice is something that we have really wanted to kind of push up the agenda this year in the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, which is one of the reasons you find Ocean Generation here quite a bit. So how, and there's always a question of like, how do we bring youth voice to the table? So again, feel free to pop in the chat now any ideas for how you might respond to this one. How do you start, stop, continue with youth voice? What are things that we need to start doing to bring youth voice to the table? What are the things that we are doing that might be presenting a barrier to young people getting involved in things like this? So what should we stop doing? And what are we already doing that we should continue doing? You know, you could apply that to the Virtual Ocean Pavilion if you've, had experience of it for a few years, or apply it to, events like this on a greater scale. What are the things we need to start doing? What do we need to stop? And what do we need to continue? Any thoughts on that? As I say, these are activities you would be using with the young people, but it's always great to kind of give it a go yourself. Any burning thoughts on what we can start, stop, and continue within Youth Voice? Just trying to scroll through everybody because I can't see everybody with sharing all of my screens. Okay, I'll give a couple of examples. So it might be that, and I've certainly worked with young people who would say, we need to start having young people on boards of environmental charities, for example. That might be one, and having their voice heard there. Something that maybe we need to stop doing might be, and I saw a LinkedIn post about this today, including young people on youth boards in a way that is very much a tick box exercise, and they actually don't get their voices heard. It just looks as if their voices are being heard, for example. So yeah, a few different things that we might be able to do in that space, but the young people themselves would have other opinions, I'm sure. But that's just an example of a topic you could use. You could do this for anything. It could be, it's a very, very local group close to the coast. What do we need to start, stop, and continue on our beach? What do we need to start, stop, and continue with the way our local communities are affecting the river? For example, you could insert anything you like into that space there. Fabulous. Okay. And then, as I say, the pack brings you to a point where we want to try and find a consensus amongst our participants. So you might have run, or your young people might have run various different activities. You've got much deeper into a discussion through some of them, and some themes have started to emerge. Okay. And with that, you can start to bring people towards a consensus. So I'm not going to go into detail on this right now, but there is guidance within the pack for how you can bring people to a consensus, even if they disagree with each other. So it's all about compromise. And that in itself is a very imperfect environmentalism approach. We can't do everything overnight. So what can we do now with the resources that we've got, with the opinions that we've got in the room? How do we move that forward? And kind of take a bit of a step-by-step approach to it as well. Now, as I say, the pack, we try and get lots and lots of people to, the young people who are involved with it, to really evaluate their own place within it, to evaluate how well that they have done, and to build those skills to then again use those skills in the future, creating better ocean conversations, but even just creating better communicators who might go into kind of science communication, ocean literacy, facilitation careers. So there's various resources as well within the pack that allow the young people to do that. Whether it's evaluation forms for themselves, journaling prompts for them to kind of reflect on what they have achieved, whether that's templates for feedback forms for their participants, for example. But we really encourage the young people to reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well, and what they might do next. In terms of what they might do next, we really want people's ocean conversations to result in an ocean action. And again, there are various examples that they might take within that pack. So say they've ended up talking about the phenomena of fast fashion, for example. They might then decide actually what they're going to do is team up with some local sustainable fashion brands and run a sustainable fashion show to raise awareness of those issues. It might be that they are a group very, very local to a beach, and they've identified that the key issue facing their local area is plastic pollution on their beach, in which case they decide to do a beach clean together. And again, there's resources within the pack to help support them to do that as well. Okay. Now, that's a lot of info, and as I say, this has always been a very, very whistle-stop tour through the pack. But here's a question I would like to ask you all now. And again, feel free to unmute yourself, or if you're not able to talk right now, pop something in the chat. But what would stop you or the young people you work with from running an ocean conversation, other than the pack, the support that we can offer, or that I've already mentioned we can offer as Ocean Generation? Is there any other support that you need? Because what we'd really like to do is make sure that we're offering as much support as we possibly can, so that these ocean conversations can take place in people's localities or online, all around the world. So is there anything that you can foresee with the young people that you work with, or any of the other groups that you work with, that might stop them from running an ocean conversation? And as I say, feel free to unmute or pop anything in the chat. Lack of knowledge, okay. Trish, could you just expand on that? Is that lack of knowledge of ocean science? Is that what you mean there? Yes. Okay, cool. In which case, that's where the starter science of the pack will starter science section of the pack will really help. That also directs them to our science hub. So Ocean Generation has a science hub where there's regularly new articles published about various different things happening in the ocean space. And also what I will also pop the link into the chat in a moment is our brand new fact-checking resource as well. Because let me just see what Trish has put. When I taught, even when I gave teachers information, they were hesitant. So breaking that barrier somehow. I've heard that as well, Trish, and I do think sometimes it is because people don't, there's so much misinformation out there. People aren't comfortable giving information that they have been given. So that's one of the reasons we've also developed a new fact-checking resource. So this is just a downloadable PDF. Again, it's absolutely free to access. I should have said that with the Ocean Conversation Pack, by the way. It is absolutely free to access. So I'll pop the link to that as well. But that's basically was developed by our Marine Science Officer, Will, and is all around how you can gain confidence in the sources of information that you're getting. Or it might just be about in the wording of things. You know, me and Will work really closely to make sure we're not saying things that might be disproven elsewhere, if that makes sense. So, you know, there are some scientific studies that might come up with one figure for how much plastic goes into the ocean every year, and others that come up with a wildly different one. It is a very, you know, an issue like that is something very, very difficult to quantify. So actually talking about the nuances within that is how we can combat that in a way, and say that we, you know, we don't have an absolute finite answer, but these are some of the estimates that have come from various different places. I think on occasion where we don't have a finite answer, it's okay to be vague. Yeah, I'll pop that fact-checking resource in the chat as well, but you can also access that via our exhibition booth on the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. Yes, Rada.
Hello. Could I also, well, I don't know if it's more, let's say it's a question. I recently started a new initiative. It's a baby initiative, maybe even an embryo. It's really at the very beginnings, in the beginning stages for sure. And it has to do with raising the profile of the ocean in Bulgaria specifically. So what I would consider a barrier to that is I find a lot easier to talk about the ocean in English, even though I am Bulgarian. So a lot of that information is not translated. It does not exist in Bulgarian. And another thing is, I wouldn't be able to use the word ocean. I would have to substitute that with the word sea, because we have the Black Sea in Bulgarian. And of course, we have to make it relevant to the people. And then, of course, introduce the concept of ocean interconnectedness is how there is only one ocean. But I think this is what could be a barrier, which I'm very happy and definitely shall be overcome. But yes, it would have to do with the language, whether that's translation or just the way you relate ocean information to the respective community.
I mean, that's a really, really good point. And I would say always think of your audience first. So if it needs to be C, because, you know, that's your closest reference, then it needs to be C. And, you know, there are some groups that you can work with and you can talk about these issues on a global scale. There are other groups where it is more appropriate to make it more localized, in which case go with the C on that one. In terms of the language barrier, that's a really interesting one as well, because, you know, a lot of these conferences, you know, COP itself, Virtual Ocean Pavilion itself, you know, they're held in English, you know. It was something that our attention has been drawn to through some of the young people that we work with to build the Ocean Conversation Pack, because many of them were from different countries. So we do have an ambition to translate it as well. And, you know, we've been working on some other projects that involve translating our work, but we want to make sure that we do it properly, because it's not just a translation, it's also a cultural translation. As well. So that is something that we are is definitely on our radar at Ocean Generation, but might take us a little while because it really needs to be done properly. And I think I would say any of you who are working in other languages, take this pack and do with it what you will, you know, to make sure that it works for your audience, because your audience is the most important thing in this conversation. Yeah.
Would love to support with the Bulgarian translation.
Amazing. I will pop my email address in at the end, Rada. So yeah,
Yes,
drop me an email,
please.
because I don't believe I've got your email, even though you are famous, Ocean
Not yet.
Generation.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Okay. Anybody else? I'm just gonna pop in as well, so everybody's got it into the chat. The link as well to the Ocean Conversation Pack, which is just there, and I'm going to find the fact-checking one for you as well. So it will ask you a few questions just in order to download it. It's just so we can track how many people are using it, and report back to our funders as well. But yeah, is there anybody else got anything like that would stop them or the people they work with from running an ocean conversation that they want to kind of address here before I round us up for the afternoon? Okay, I'll just scroll through, make sure I can't see anybody. No, okay. Well, as I say, I am going to pop in my email address here. And if you have any questions, no question too big, too small, or too silly, do feel free to kind of give me a shout if it comes to very, very specific things about the group that you want to work with. What I will also pull up for us is the fact-checking resource, which I have to say I can't take massive amounts of credit for. It was my idea because Wavemakers were asking for it, but this is largely the work of Will, who is our marine science officer, who, if you joined us for the first ever session this year at the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, you will have seen Will's lovely face. And I'm sure he'll be joining us for a few more as well. So the fact-checking resource is here. Again, free to download, and that's to download from our e-learning platform, which is also free for people to access, but gives you access to lots of different workshops under the Wavemaker Ocean Generation banner. Okay. Fabulous. So with all of that, let's round things up for today. I've popped in the link to the Ocean Conversation pack. We do also host ocean conversations for corporate events and things like that. So do get in touch if that is of interest and you'd actually like Ocean Generation to host something for you. You've got my email address now to kind of make that happen. But something that we always finish our workshops, our ocean conversations and things like that on, and again, something we find really, really resonates with the young people in particular that we're working with, is to kind of have a hopeful nod to the future at the end. So the ocean is too big and too central to the planet's future to ignore. And what we're trying to do with offers like the Ocean Conversation Pack or the Wavemaker program, which, as I've previously said, looks at different people's interests and finds the ocean link that way, is to bring people together from all walks of life, all backgrounds, to stop the harmful practices that are damaging our ocean. Because, as I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone here, this is not just the job of marine scientists, it is the job of everybody. So we want to show everybody where they can all have an impact, no matter what it is they study, that's their passion, or that they do for a living. And so it's within that as well, we start to draw attention to some great moments where we've seen, you know, big movement, or we've certainly seen hope for the ocean. You know, having something like the Virtual Ocean Pavilion and being involved in this is absolutely one of them. You know, seeing the ocean being discussed on a global scale, you know, on these stages where it had been left out of the conversation for a long time. But also looking towards the High Seas Treaty as well, and that being ratified. It are, you know, huge moments and milestones that we hold on to hope with at Ocean Generation, because we have seen how the ocean can heal itself during the pandemic. And whilst nobody wants another lockdown, it did just go to show just how, if we give the ocean a chance, it has the ability to heal itself. So if we can encourage everyone to do things differently, think outside of the box, everybody play a little bit of their part, we can give the ocean that chance to do so. So that's the bit of hope we always end on with our young people. And yeah, like I say, I really love to hear any final thoughts, any final questions, if anybody's got anything specific, or anything anybody really wants to kind of talk about within this space. We've got 10 minutes left to kind of do so. I've popped my email address in the chat. We've also got the general youth@oceangeneration.org that is on the screen right now. And I want to thank you all for kind of being involved today, bearing with the technical difficulties, which always happens during this. Unfortunately, Mentimeter didn't want to play, but I think we managed it in the end. And yeah, I really hope that's given you an insight into some of the things you might find in that pack and some of the ways you might be able to engage people in these ocean conversations. We would really love to hear from you if you hold an ocean conversation, or if any young people that you work with hold an ocean conversation, and hear those stories. That would be really fantastic. We want to see this happening across the world as much as is humanly possible, whether that's within the timeline of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion and people getting together as part of this network, or whether that is something beyond as well. So do keep in touch on that. Whilst anybody thinks about any final questions you might have, I'm just going to hand back to Katie from the Global Ocean Forum for a moment, just to kind of have a reminder of some of the other things you can sign up to as part of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. Katie.
Thank you, Gemma. And echoing Gemma, thank you again to everyone on the roundtable today. It's been really great to learn a bit more about your perspectives and the work that you're doing to support the ocean around the world. And this is exactly the kind of conversations we're hoping to generate through the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. So I will put the link in the chat again to the landing page for the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, where if you haven't already, you can register to access the platform. It's free to register. You just need an email to sign on. And you can really gain access to a wealth of features. As Gemma mentioned, we have an exhibition hall where there is an exhibition by Ocean Generation and 12 other ocean and climate focused organizations from around the globe, spotlighting the work and the initiatives that they're a part of. We have a series of roundtables. This is our first roundtable that Gemma has done a fabulous job of leading, and we'll have 3 more roundtables on offer throughout the pavilion. We also have a series of live events, which are formatted more as a webinar style type dialogue. And with those live events, they'll be ongoing throughout the pavilion, with the full agenda available on the pavilion landing page. We also will be having daily updates and some reporting from the in-person COP in Belém, which will be featured through our treasure trove, which is a really cool interactive resource where you can learn what's happening on the platform in the wider ocean and climate community. It's a way to spotlight different ocean and climate art. So just a great way to dive in to see all the different ways people are interacting with the ocean. And one of the features we're really excited to highlight this year is our youth-led interview series, which is right now about 10 interviews that have been conducted by youth ocean and climate leaders from around the world, connecting them with negotiators and ocean and climate experts that are involved with the COP to have a conversation and learn a bit more about the work that goes into this COP, and really is a chance to connect our youth with some of the key experts that are at the center of this process. So it's a really great resource. I'd encourage everyone to check it out. And all of that is available on our platform. So I will put that link in the chat now, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the Virtual Ocean Pavilion as well.
Cool. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, does anyone have any final questions for either myself or Katie about the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, or anything Ocean Generation and Ocean Conversation pack. Okay. Okay. Well, as I say, if you find yourself going through, I can already see downloads coming in. I've got notifications for people downloading the pack. If you have any questions, once you've downloaded it and had a look through it, as I say, it is designed for you to dip into the bits that you need. You don't need to read it cover to cover. So just identify which parts you need, which parts your young people might need, or your other participants might need. And if anything feels unclear or you want some guidance on particular working with particular groups. I know someone said that they were working with deaf and visually impaired people, for example. Funnily enough, we have actually had a student consultant from Oxford University who is visually impaired actually have a look at the pack. So we're working on making that better at this moment in time. But I personally have a specialism for working with people with various disabilities and neurodiversities. Having worked in the dance industry for many years before joining Ocean Generation, which is a whole other story. But do drop me an email if you've got any really specific questions about that, about how things might need to be adapted. Equally, if you've got suggestions for how things might be adapted, please do send them through. You know, we've done our best to kind of put out there what we think is best practice for us, but we know there's so much more knowledge out there. And at Ocean Generation, we're really, really keen on collaboration and kind of understanding how other groups and other people work. So we'd really, really love to hear from you on that perspective. Yeah, and if you've got any further questions about the Wavemaker program, which this is just one tiny part of, then also drop me an email or a message as well. Marie, you have unmuted yourself, so I'm assuming wanting to say something.
No.
Oh, okay. An accidental unmuting. I was waiting for a performance there. No?
No, sorry.
That's okay. No worries. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions, we can stick around for a couple of minutes. But if not, we will let you go. And once again, thank you so much for being involved today, bearing with us through the technology and having such interesting questions and thoughts to sort of add in. It is something that I really wish we had so much longer than an hour and a half to go through, but hopefully it's a flavor and you can get in touch with me for anything else.